Welcome back to more Warhammer lore. In today's video we will be delving back into the burrows of the lovable and also trustworthy ratmen, the Skaven. Specifically the new addition to the Skaven roster in Total War Warhammer 2, Tretch Craventail and Clan Rictus, which will also allow me to cover a little bit more on the clan system of the Skaven and maybe even some societal aspects that may have been neglected from my previous videos. As always, I will be pulling this information from the latest army books as well as the Warhammer fantasy novels, if you wish to reference the source material firsthand. And with that out of the way, let's get into the lore, starting with Clan Rictus. Now, Clan Rictus is a warlord clan with a base in Crookback Mountain. Now, I should mention that besides the four great clans of Mulder, Scryer, Pestilence, and Eshin, there are hundreds, if not thousands, of what can be called warlord clans that function much in the same way as the great clans, except on a rather smaller scale in most situations. That is not to say that these clans do not hold great power, and in fact many clans have members even on the Council of 13. A good example of this would be Clan Moors, the home world, or home clan, of the ever-lovable Queek Headtaker. And speaking of Clan Moors, that just happens to be one of the greatest rival clans to Clan Rictus. Now, every Skaven clan tends to have a speciality, and sometimes the specialities fall under the umbrella of one of the greater clans, and in fact are subservient in a way, but allowed to retain their clan without being absorbed by the greater clan. These clans are separate from the warlord clans. They are known as thrall clans, and they are often forced into supplying something the greater clan needs, such as special troops or perhaps soldiers for an upcoming fight, or maybe even a commodity they can sell to the other clans. Regardless, the warlord clans are independent of these great clans and often specialize in something that the great clans either can't be bothered with to develop on their own, or they're just not capable of it. They don't have the necessary resources. And this is certainly the case with Clan Rictus. You see, Clan Rictus, being located in Crookback Mountain, despite being a lesser clan, has access to a rather substantial night goblin population of slaves for the Under Empire. As well, they can charge a rather impressive sum for any clan wishing to cross their borders into the Darklands, and an even more impressive sum of warp tokens to any Skaven that wants to get back into the Under Empire from the Darklands. So, this is not the only commodity they provide, however. Oh no. Clan Rictus, much like Clan Moors, is famous for its hardy ratmen, specifically its large amount of Blackford storm vermin, which they seem to produce quite a few more than any average clan, a feat only Clan Moors can say to possess, which makes them natural enemies as they are in direct competition of one another. Of course, essentially every Skaven clan wants to crush the other in some way, but the rivalry between these two clans is very similar to the way the great clans are always at each other's throats. This is where Tretch comes into play. Unlike the pride of Clan Rictus, Tretch was not blessed with the size or disposition of many of his brethren, and was one of the smaller whelps born from his broodmother, and instead has had to rely upon his wits to not only keep him alive in Skaven society, but to make a name for himself. Tretch, despite his size, managed to live long enough to go on his very first raid into the Darklands to bring back some Night Goblin slaves. The Skaven Claw leader, being the most experienced and obviously superior of the bunch, decided upon a standard attack on the Night Goblin camp they came upon, and was about to throw all of his ratmen straight at the enemy when Tretch made a suggestion. To the most wise of tacticians, that instead of charging directly into the goblin camp and risking the precious lives of his underlings, that they could instead sneak into the camp that night and spike the goblin's beer. Not only save the lives of his pitiful underlings, but they would capture more slaves. The Claw leader, seeming to magically come up with this great plan, put it into place, as his tactical genius and love of his downtrodden ratmen would spare them the terror of battle. Yes. So, that very night, the Skaven raiding party set upon the goblin camp and easily murdered any sober gobos, as well as successfully enslaving a great number of the Night Goblin tribe. Of course, this being a rather large camp, they also had quite a few trinkets and baubles. Tretch is allowed the honor of carrying the best loot for his claw leader, and he was not given as much of a hard time as some of the other ratmen for his minor contribution to the battle plan. Tretch, of course, obliges his leader and not only carries the loot, but nabs a barrel of some kind and begins to haul this bounty with his raiding party back to Crookback Mountain with all of these slaves in tow. They managed to make it back into the Skaven tunnel systems with relatively no problems. But these tunnels can be rather tricky, and many lead to dead ends. The claw leader, not wanting to appear as if he really doesn't know where he's going, stops the raiding party and calls forward all of his lesser leaders into the front of the encampment to figure out which way they should be going to get back home. This is where the scrawny, unassuming Tretch Craventail times his betrayal of his rather dubious claw leader perfectly, as who would suspect treachery from such an unassuming Skaven? As the claw leader stops the warband, Tretch sneaks over to a column of Gobbo slaves and opens up his barrel. It turns out that this barrel is filled with distilled, highly potent madcap mushroom brew. Now, for those of you who don't know the difference between a Night Goblin and a Night Goblin fanatic, it is in fact this very alcohol. Tretch allows the Gobbos to drink down the brew, and they immediately begin to spin out of control, utilizing their shackles and the other goblins to attack with and make a odd whirlwind motion as a bludgeon to cleave into the Skaven line. Just bodies slapping against bodies, and it's just a massacre. And it just so happens that, unfortunately, these fanatics, before being brought down by the honorable Skaven, they viciously murder the claw leader and all of his lieutenants. Of course, then who else could lead this warband home except for the small Skaven that had suggested all of these wise tactics in the first place? Nobody actually saw him spike the brew, so no one knew the difference as to what the heck happened with all the goblin slaves. And not only did he save the day, he received quite a bit of respect and admiration of his newfound warband by leading them back to their home. Now, when they finally make it back to their clan, Tretch is officially given command of this claw pack, so he became the new claw leader for leading them back and also managing to bring them home all of the loot. Now, they may not have had all the slaves that they had, but they definitely had all of the loot, and that was an accomplishment in and of itself. And Tretch had, a little figment in the back of his mind that this might be the best way to move up in Clan Rictus, and in general, this is usually the line of succession that is drawn between the Skaven whenever they want to move up in the world. Now, Tretch has in fact done nothing but move up the chain of command since his success with the Night Goblin raid, often through acts of either extreme cunning or living through a disastrous situation. For instance, Tretch is now well known and respected for planning and executing countless successful ambushes, the most honorable and proud Skaven war tactic. In fact, it was Tretch who found the hidden path at the Battle of Black Crag to outflank the dwarves' gun line. It was Tretch who led the rather successful raid into the Badlands, utilizing tunnels beneath the Black Orc warlord Dagbad's camp, stealing every single Gobbo in his service. Of course, there have also been many setbacks, as Tretch was the only survivor to escape the sinking of the Imperial Galleon on the River Aver, as well as survived countless routs at the hands of enemy artillery and unfortunate accidents of warp fire throwers and globadier gas. However, somehow despite the best efforts of those who see his rise through the clan as an eyesore, he has survived it all, and is seen smiling, while probably shivering and stinking of the musk of fear on the other side. Yes. And not only does he survive these impossible situations, but often he performs some feat that either turns the battle or saves himself the misfortune of losing his warlord's favor. A most quick way to have your tail snipped from your body. In fact, despite all of these setbacks, Tretch has recently earned the title of Chieftain of the Deep Warrens. How, you say, does one rise from claw leader to chieftain? Well, by disguising yourself as a stalagmite and waiting for the previous chieftain to walk underneath you, and dropping from the ceiling and cleaving the obviously unfavored, treacherous chieftain in two. Surely if he was worthy of leading the Ratmen, then the Horned One would have given him a sign, but alas, now Tretch must assume command for exposing such a weakling in Clan Rictus. Now, with a small army at his command, Tretch Craventail has become more ambitious by leading nighttime raids upon the smaller towns of the Empire, leading successful warpstone scavenging expeditions into the Darklands. This, of course, has earned him a great deal of respect from his warlord and underlings, but the vile hatred of his fellow chieftains, especially those above him, who fear the Skaven and his cunning, as they probably should, and so often Tretch is given a rather selection of suicidal missions and impossible tasks from his superior chieftains. Yet, despite all odds, Tretch always returns, usually without his underlings, but always having either completed his task or done something to warrant some kind of reward. Truly, Tretch is a Skaven with the luck of the Horned One, or at least a Ratman with a sense of victory and a muzzle for knowing when to flee the battle. Now, unfortunately, that is actually all of the actual lore I could come across in the army books, but now we will be moving on to his inclusion in Total War Warhammer 2 as the newest DLC Lord for the Skaven. First off, I have to say that CA has done a great job capturing Tretch's character from the tabletop and translating it into Total War. His campaign effects revolve around amassing and giving his units attack bonuses when either ambushing or fighting after retreating, and he gets a public order bonus every time you break a diplomatic pact with another faction. That is just so very Skaven that it really does make me wish that this was a static effect for all Skaven factions. But it does make sense for Tretch, as he's definitely, even in the lore he's talked about, really hammering home those ambushes. So they even imported some of his more special rules from the tabletop, such as Tretch's Raiders, which on the tabletop was a unit, basically. They were kind of like his bodyguard unit. They had improved stats and almost like improved luck, I guess you could kind of equate that to. And in Total War, he instead gives an aura to nearby units that gives them a melee attack and armor-piercing buff, turning Clan Rats into a much more formidable unit. So that's kind of how they did that. Now, he also gets his Stay Here, I'll Get Help ability, which, from what I understand, was rather risky in the tabletop, as it allowed him to jump to another unit so that he could kind of keep him alive on the battlefield. But if he failed to make it to the other unit, he just simply just ran away. And then you just were out a leader. So, extremely cowardly, but I mean, he does represent the penultimate Skaven, so you can't really be that mad about it. Now, in Total War, of course, that wouldn't fly, but this ability instead allows him to obtain a stalk and increases his speed so he can run away quicker. Unlike normal stalk, however, it works even against units closing in on him. So it lets you take your general and hide him from Lord Sniping. Whether it's magic or a gain of heroes, Tretch can sneak away and fight in a more advantageous position. Speaking of which, he does retain his only magical item in the Lucky Skull Helm, which is the skull of one of his defeated rivals. I don't know which one. I couldn't figure it out. I went through a couple army books and they don't have it listed. And you can pretty much guess that it gives him luck. But in Total War, this translates to a fairly substantial ward save. It makes Tretch probably the most tanky lord for the Skaven. And unfortunately, this is going to be one of my rather short videos, guys. I apologize for that, but there will be some more long ones on the way very soon. Now, overall, Tretch, though not one of my top picks for Skaven Lord, is certainly a welcome addition, and CA has done a great job of keeping his character intact. Now, I would like to say thank you to all of my loyal subscribers and my new followers in the Cult of Thick. That is what I'm calling this fan base until someone comes up with something better. So, yes, if you are new to the channel, you should think about both liking this video and subscribing to the channel. It really does help me out, and it helps other people quite a bit in viewing the content and just getting this all out there for everyone to see. So, it always will help the Skaven spread the glory of the Great Horned One. So there's always that option if you, you know, are really into Skaven. So I'm goofing around enough, guys. As always, thank you very much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you all very soon. Have a good day.